Imagine this. You sign a legal document in Manila. That document is processed in an office in Batangas. But months later, a related underlying fraud is finally uncovered all the way in Pampanga. When the police are eventually called and a warrant is issued, which city's judge actually holds the legal authority to put you on trial? It is easy to assume that any judge wearing a robe has universal authority, but a judge sitting in Makati has absolutely zero legal power to rule on a localized incident that occurred in San Juan. Before a single piece of evidence is evaluated, the court must pass a strict procedural test known as the requisites for the exercise of criminal jurisdiction. The prosecution has to prove that the court has specific territorial authority over the events in question. Without establishing those exact geographical ties, the entire process collapses. The trial, the verdict, and any resulting prison sentence are legally void. Outside its invisible territorial borders, the gavel has no power at all. The legal term for this scenario is a transitory or continuing crime. These are offenses where the material acts required to complete the crime are physically separated. One component takes place in one territory, while the remaining acts unfold across entirely different municipal borders. But there is a strict procedural threshold here. A court's jurisdiction isn't determined by the messy reality of the physical evidence scattered across the country. It is determined entirely by what is formally alleged in the written complaint. Take cases involving BP-22, the bouncing checks law. For a check to bounce illegally, 4 geographic phases must occur: drawn, issued, delivered, and dishonored. In this court decision, we see a crucial debate. The Office of the Solicitor General argued that simply depositing a check in a specific city does not give that city's court jurisdiction, claiming depositing isn't an essential element of the offense. If that argument held, victims of fraud would face a massive hurdle. They would be forced to travel back to the specific city where the fraudulent check was originally created or issued just to file their case. Applying that strict interpretation would build immense procedural barriers for victims of fraud in a world where business transactions cross city lines every second. In Yalong v. People, the Supreme Court clarified this. The trial court correctly took the case because the victim presented the check for deposit in Batangas. This establishes the first claim principle. A transitory crime is filed wherever an essential element occurred. This creates a procedural race. The very first local court to formally accept the complaint and take cognizance of the case legally locks out all other potential venues. Mapping this back to our opening scenario, the trial happens in Batangas. Even though the document was signed in Manila and the fraud originated in Pampanga, the victim discovered the bounced check and filed the complaint in Batangas first. The simple physical act of discovering the crime locally transforms a mundane bank branch into a legal anchor, allowing a local court to validly open its doors and proceed with a criminal trial. A court's authority is never arbitrary. It has to be physically tethered to the real-world manifestation of the crime. These rigid geographic rules exist as a procedural shield to protect the accused. They prevent the state from engaging in forum shopping. Prosecutors cannot simply drag a defendant into a distant, arbitrary, or overly friendly court just to secure an easy conviction. The power to strip a citizen of their liberty must be firmly rooted in the exact soil where the elements of the crime actually transpired. In criminal procedure, geography is a strict legal threshold. It is the boundary line that separates the legitimate exercise of justice from an abuse of state power.